Welcome back to Ghost Stories, the podcast that shines a spotlight on the awesome people and the awesome things going on at Kaukauna High School, the home of the Galloping Ghosts. I'm the proud principal, Aaron Herm. Today, we have members of our highly successful this year forensics team who have been dominating at tournaments and who have set records, school records, in the number of points that they've earned at tournaments. And I am very excited to learn about everything that they are doing and everything that goes into their success. So we have one person from each grade level on the forensics team. Let's introduce yourselves, starting from youngest to oldest.
I'm Hope. I'm a freshman here, and I'm really excited to be doing forensics.
And what events do you participate in?
I do prose, which is kind of like excerpts from a book. And then my second category would be Farrago, which you kind of mix together literature pieces. Like mine has poetry, a prose piece, song lyrics, and even lines from a musical. Very cool. All right. Who's the sophomore?
I'm Anna Bestul. This is my second year on the team because I'm a sophomore. I really enjoy this and try and get as many people as I can to join the team.
Excellent. Did you say your events?
I rotate between 7. My main ones are oil, impromptu, duo, improv. Yeah, those are my main ones. Oh, I guess oratorical declamation. Oratorical declamation is a memorized 10-minute speech somebody else wrote and performed.
Wow.
Oil is 10-minute prose piece and 10-minute poetry piece, rotating which one between rounds. And impromptu, you're given 3 topics and you have to make a speech based off of the topic or word or quote you're given.
Okay. Sounds like it takes a lot of skill. Okay, so we have Hope, we have Anna, and we have
Javis, the junior.
Javis, the junior.
The 2 categories that I perform are solo humorous and prose, and this is my first year.
Very cool. And also joining us, we have...
My name's Lillian. I'm the senior. This is my 4th year in forensics.
Okay.
I'm one of only, I think, 2
really
who are 4-year.
4-year members?
Yeah.
Okay.
You don't get it very often. My categories, I'm kind of like Anna. I've done a lot, but this year I have 3 main ones. I do prose, which is what Anna was talking about. However, mine's a lot more serious. I do oil, which is oral interpretation of literature.
Okay, I was going to come back to that. I didn't know what you meant when you said oil.
Yeah, so oral interpretation of literature. And then I do solo serious. So I have a 10-minute memorized monologue where I kind of use my space and I just kind of perform, and I need to act very serious.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. And then also joining us today, we have Brianna Moody.
Hey, everybody.
And Brianna Moody is our communications and marketing coordinator for the district. She's always been instrumental in this podcast. And just trying to get her on mic more often because she always has such good questions to ask behind the scenes.
Okay, so I have a first question, and maybe I should know the answer to this, guys, but can you describe what forensics is? Because I'm not going to lie, when I was in high school and I heard about forensics, I thought it was like forensic science, like trying to investigate crime scenes. And I was like, what? Okay, so that was back in high school, obviously. So I'm not in high school anymore. But maybe for some of our viewers, they don't know what forensics is. So would you mind describing what forensics is?
Yeah, I'm going to answer that one. So I'm actually on the state committee for forensics. So it's
really?
The WFCA, Wisconsin Forensics Coaches Association. I'm on the student committee.
Very cool.
And so forensics is typically described as speech and debate. So there's 2 different types of forensics that we call it. There's speeches and then there's performing. So performing will be like your prose, your poetry, or solo acting. But your informative, there's speeches. So you can do, there's one called informative, or there's ones called expository, which is a shorter version. There's extemporaneous speaking, which is like a political topic kind of thing where you're given a topic and you research for half an hour and then you give a speech. And there's lots of different types of that. So if you want to perform and you want to just talk, it's basically just public speaking is the way I explain it to people. It's a really good way to get out of your shell and just talk to people. I've met a lot of people and I was very, very shy my freshman year. And it's really opened up a lot of doors for me as well. I've been involved in theater as well. Forensics has helped me a lot in there. It got me on stage this year, which I was too scared to do before. So, I mean, yeah, public speaking is the best way to put it.
What made you decide to join forensics? How did you find out about it? What made you excited about it?
I have a really unique circumstance in how I was introduced to forensics. A lot of people, it's through friends, coaches, people saying they'd be good at public speech. However, my experience was I had a lot of family members who were really involved with forensics throughout different schools. In some districts, they have middle school leagues or teams. Our school is sadly not one of them. However, my mother used to compete in forensics at a middle school level, and my uncle and even my grandma had competed in it in a high school level. And although my parents had come from Little Chute, my grandma came from Kaukauna, and she was a state champion at some point in 70s or 80s. I believe it was the 70s for a self-written prose piece. So I was encouraged my entire life to join this, and I found it is something I really enjoy.
Very cool. Hope, what's your story?
My story, I've been friends with Anna Bestul for a really long time, and she actually encouraged me to join forensics because I've always been very involved in like theatrical things and activities, and obviously like public speaking being one of them. And she was like, yeah, like I think you would really enjoy doing this. And I didn't know too much about it. And there was like an informational meeting and we learned about it. I was like, this would be something that like I'm really interested in. And I'm really glad I did join it because I've made like a ton of friends and I think it's a great experience.
I get in because a couple friends told me about it. I'd always participated in the musicals up until this year. And so since I didn't participate in the musical this year, I wanted to have another outlet to act. And so I found this, and my friends had talked to me about it before, and I was like, this seems really interesting. So I tried it. I tried a couple of categories, and so far I've picked what I enjoy. It's been awesome.
All right, well, I'll go last. So my freshman year, it was also Mr. Juno, our coach's first year here, and he was a new coach, and our team was a lot smaller than it was now. We probably have over 40 people on our team now. We had probably close to 20 back when I was a freshman.
Very cool. I was going to ask how many people, so that's awesome that it's grown so much.
Yeah, we are honestly still getting new members this year, which is insane.
Like mid-season?
Yeah.
And you're
We're
bringing
still
them on?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Okay.
I mean, the more the merrier. It really doesn't hurt or, I mean, all I can do is help, especially with our point totals that we were talking about earlier. But yeah, my freshman year was Mr. Juno's first year, and his first year coaching at Kaukauna. And my other friend had been involved in plays before and really got roped into it with Mr. Juno. And I was attacked on all sides and peer pressured. And I joined.
Positive peer pressure.
Yeah,
yes, positive peer pressure.
Positive peer pressure. I was terrified though. And I'll never forget this. I actually wrote an essay about it for a scholarship, but I almost quit after my first tournament. It went so bad. It was the one I was talking about earlier. I mentioned expository. It was its first year doing that. I feel really old talking like this. It was its first year that it was a category, and nobody knew the rules, including my coaches. And so they threw me in this tournament in this category nobody had ever done before as a freshman, and I butchered it. And first round, it was supposed to be a 5-minute informative speech. I went up, I performed for about 2 minutes talking nonsense about Beethoven. And I went back to the cafeteria where we all meet, and I just cried. I cried my little heart out. I didn't know we could have note cards. I didn't know what the topics were supposed to be. I knew nothing. And I don't know what, possessed me to keep going, but I had 20 minutes until the next round. I wrote everything on a note card, and I kept going, and I'm here today.
That's awesome. Way to stick with it.
Okay, so you guys talked about plays and theater, and there seems to be some connection to forensics, but can you guys explain, if you're in theater, is everyone in forensics in theater and vice versa? How does that work?
Yeah. So I guess with your question, because all of us have been theater involved, you could say there's a lot of overlap. However, they're not necessarily required to be intertwined. I remember when I was in Mean Girls my freshman year last year, we had Mr. Juno come in one of our rehearsal days and talk to us because there's a lot of overlap and he figured a lot of us would be interested. And so he was advertising this club to all of these kids because, as Lily was talking about earlier, there's a lot of different categories. There's a bunch of informational ones if you don't want to act, but there's also other ones where you really embody a character and have to convince the judges, yes, this is what you're feeling, this is what you're going through, and you want them to feel that too. So there's a lot of overlap if you have those interests, because although all of forensics is not inherently acting, some of it is. And if you want something to do outside of the normal theater season or even in replacement of the theater season, it's a great alternative.
You said you want others to feel the way that you're trying to convey. And before we started recording, you said you made a judge cry this weekend.
I got close to making a judge cry this weekend. I did make a girl in that room cry.
What was your piece, or what were you performing?
So one of the things with forensics people, I feel like, don't really know about before they join is sometimes it can deal with really heavy topics. Well, there are funny things, such as how Javis said he does solo serious as one of his categories. That piece makes me laugh out loud. But
Solo humorous.
That's okay. Sorry. But while there are pieces that can make people laugh out loud, and of course there's those informational ones, there's also really sad, harsh topics covered. They do handle things that a lot of people unfortunately do deal with, though. So if I'm able to portray that well, and those people who have experienced it feel like that really resonates with them, they might cry.
So you guys kind of described tournaments making judges cry. You talked about judges being and then going back to the cafeteria. Can you guys kind of describe what a tournament looks like? Like in my head, I did solo and ensemble. I know Mr. Herm also did solo and ensemble growing up. So that is the point of reference that I have. But for our viewers and our listeners, can you guys talk about what like a tournament kind of looks like as far as judges and what you do in between and all that stuff?
I know you just mentioned solo ensemble, and in some ways it's very similar with having one judge in a room. However, this is more scheduled out. Well, in solo ensemble, you have your individual time slots where you go into the room and nobody else is in there unless you have friends or family members. These are scheduled out into 3 rounds, and then the 4th final round, the power round, if you make it. I'm pulling up stuff right now, but I'm sure Lily would have more to share on it as she's been in longer.
Yeah, so just kind of what it was look like. We just had our Kaukauna tournament, so I'll use our school as a reference. So when schools get here, they come in buses and they kind of claim tables in the cafeteria. You wait, you get ready. Some people come in their pajamas, you get dressed, and then there's concessions, whatever. When a round starts, there's typically designated times each round starts. It'll, I want to say, like 8:45, 10:15, 11:30. Or not 11:30. Yeah, roughly around there. And for that first time, it'll be, again, our 3 preliminary rounds is what we call them. You will be assigned a room. So you'll have a room number based on your category. You will only be in a room with people of the same category. You will go in, it'll be between, I want to say, 3 and 7 people, depending on how big or small the tournament is. I've had tournaments where it's just 2 of us in a whole category. So you'll go in and there will be the other competitors in there and then a single judge for your preliminary rounds. You will present depending on how your category works, and then you will exit the room as soon as everybody is done, unless you are double or triple entered, which many of us are here. In that case, you go to your first room, you present, you leave, second room, present, go, third room, present, and then you can go back to the cafeteria. That would just be 1 round. You do that 2 more times. So in each preliminary round, you get a score. So the judge will score you, well, 1 is your best, and 5, or sometimes you go to a 6, would be the worst. So you have to get a certain number. You get number scores based on how you did in your preliminary rounds, and that'll be how you get into the power round if you meet a certain criteria. So, for example, the best you can do is straight 1s. If you get straight 1s, you're guaranteed to get into the power round, and then you present and you're ranked against the best of the best that were at that tournament. And then after all of our preliminary rounds and our power rounds are over, we all gather our stuff from the cafeteria, we go into the auditorium, and then we'll have trophies and medals set up, and we'll do our awards ceremony. Typically, we do that alphabetical, so the coach of that school, for example, Mr. Juno, will go on stage, and alphabetically, he will list off each category. The people who powered in each of those categories will go on stage. They will get their medals or their trophies, and we go through all the categories like that, and then we do team awards, and then that's how we finish off our tournament.
That sounds like a long day. So how long are we talking? Like from the time you get on the bus in the morning till maybe you get back here?
Typically 8 hours.
Okay.
Some of our further tournaments, like our next 2 tournaments, are going to be longer. We're going to Fond du Lac and Wapaka, so we're going to be gone probably closer to 10 hours.
Sure.
We
Were you going to add?
Oh,
Yeah, go
we
ahead.
typically have to get here for the closer tournaments around 6:50 in the morning, 6:55ish to get on the bus. And I did pull up when rounds started for our last tournament, which was Nina, and this is average across most tournaments for when they start. So round 1 started at 8:45 and round 2 was at 10. And you may be like, wow, that's a huge gap. But again, Lily was talking about double and triple entering. So yes, for single entered people, single entered competitors, they have a large break time. However, they will probably be required to stay in those rooms waiting for those double and triple entered competitors. And then the third round started at 11:30. I don't have the stuff for the power round for that tournament, but I assume it was 1 something.
Yeah, it's typically between 12:30 and 1 o'clock.
What do you mean by double and triple entered? Is that when you're doing multiple different events or multiple? of the
Yep,
same
you're
event?
doing multiple different speeches or performances.
Categories, yeah.
So if that's what a tournament day is like, I'm curious about all of the rehearsal and practice and preparation that goes into it. So what is the forensics day-to-day experience? Like when the season starts, what are you working on? As the season progresses, what are you working on? If I were to walk into a practice after school, what would that look like?
I know I've been talking a lot. I'm just going to add on quick. I'm a team captain on a team, and I hope to be a future coach. But I rearranged the scheduling for this year. I sat down with our coach, Mr. Juno, and I was like, hey, I think we need to practice more. Thinking back to my freshman year, we probably practiced maybe once a week. We'd come in, we'd have an assigned day, we'd practice with our coaches, and we'd leave. This year is a lot different because we wanted a lot more practice. Mondays are our only day off. Sundays as well. So what we'll do is we did it so Mondays are our day off, and then everybody's required to come Tuesday. We have an optional practice Wednesday, required Thursdays, and then team bonding on Fridays where we do a practice and then something fun as a team afterwards.
How do you practice? these
Yeah.
things? Like,
Run it over and over and over again.
do you pick your categories first? Do you?
Oh yeah, you pick your category first typically, and then we have a script finding website. We call it the Vault. That's actually what it's called. And on there it'll give you either topic ideas or it will give you actual scripts. So like your prose and your poetry, you can find scripts online. Again, I know Anna mentioned this earlier. You can write those yourself. It's not recommended. It's far more difficult to connect with your audience if you're getting very, very personal. It can happen. Funny story. I was told no to writing my own piece my sophomore year, and I said, watch me do it anyway. And I went behind my coach's back and I performed a piece that I wrote, and I regret it. It was really bad, and it hurts your feelings a lot more when they're like, oh, this sucked. And it's just like, oh, okay, so I'm just bad, and I never did it again. But, if you are a good writer and you want to do it, it's totally an option. However, I was not a good writer, and it showed. You can write your own pieces. Your informative pieces, you typically will write yourself, or your coaches can help you write them. But for your acting categories, not recommended to do it for yourself.
Yeah.
At practice, what we normally do is we're split into separate rooms, and there are around like 3 to 4 people per room. We'll have around an hour, so everyone will do their pieces, and people will watch, and they will give feedback. And so it's kind of getting different viewpoints on your piece and just getting more experience with your piece and doing it.
Mm-hmm. And then earlier in the season, branching off to what like Lily and Anna are saying, because I do Farrago, and for me, like early in the season, a lot of time was spent finding pieces and finding like good pieces that kind of matched to put it in Farrago. So it's not necessarily writing your own piece, but it's very much creating and editing and revising your own piece. And that's why I really like it. It's typically described as like a kind of harder category because the pieces are so personalized. A lot of people are very connected to it and they can perform them very well. And it's been kind of intimidating to join it as a freshman. But I really do enjoy creating my own piece. And I've already created my piece for next year, honestly. But it was really difficult to kind of use my practice time to create and pick out a piece because I think I lost a lot of practice time on that Farrago especially. But most of like the early practices are for like picking out a piece and stuff like that.
On the other side of practices, there's, apart from just picking your piece and cutting it like in Farrago, or if you need to cut it down to a certain time for any scripted categories, there's also the physical aspect of practice. And I'm not just talking about some categories you have to put stuff in a binders, but it's not all just talking the entire time. For example, I just said something about it's not all about putting it in binders. However, it is very important for a lot of categories like oral interpretation of literature, Farrago, prose, poetry. They all are binder categories, which means you put your piece in there. It doesn't have to be memorized. However, you still need to know it well. And in those categories, often you need to have a lot of actions. However, you're not allowed to have any props. So using your practice time, you need to do blocking. For theater people who might be listening, you understand that planning out your movements ahead of time. But besides that, you need to put everything in the binder. But there's categories that don't require that. So you may be wondering, well, what do you do with your time? And besides just practice, it could be picking out new things such as a category, like new category. Like I picked up a ton this year that don't require any prep, such as I said, impromptu, pick the category, do whatever. That doesn't require any prep. You just walk into the tournament and start speaking. But there's like a ton of things to do with your practice time. It's not all just mental and speaking. There's physical, but again, it's not just one or the other.
Do you guys then pick one thing and do it for all the tournaments for the season? Or does every tournament, do you pick a different piece?
Honestly, that can be up to you. Typically you do the same one. Like I've had the same 3 pieces since my second tournament. I brought some to the first tournament, realized I hated them, picked some new ones, and I've stuck with them for the rest of the season. I will say I didn't do that last year. I probably went through, I want to say 4 different prose pieces, just because sometimes a lot of these pieces are very exhausting, either physically or emotionally, especially when you do serious topics like me and Anna. Those can get really, really tiring to do weekend after weekend. So what I kind of did last year is I switched between serious and comedic. And when I was like, okay, I can't be this serious anymore, I'd switch to comedic, and then I'm like, oh, I'm not funny anymore. So I'd switch back to and I just kind of kept doing it. You're allowed to do that. But typically you'll see somebody stick with the same thing throughout. Like I think Javis has stuck with the same thing, and so has Hope.
I haven't changed my piece at all. I'm very, very picky when it comes to picking pieces, and so I feel like changing pieces would just be kind of slapping old me in the face.
Yeah, and I could see the benefits to both, right? As far as like changing, because you need something different for yourself, but also just getting really good at one thing. Yeah, and that probably changes. Did that change for you, Lily, as you went through your forensics career? Like, did you always kind of change throughout the year, or did you?
I didn't my freshman year.
Okay,
freshman year,
that's
I
what
sucked.
I was wondering.
I will say I was the worst on the team. Like actually, like if you look at the scores, I was the worst on the team. Juno always likes to poke fun at me, because I went from the worst on the team to my freshman year to point-wise, I've been the best this year. And Juno always kind of teases me about it, because I put in so much work to forensics.
That's cool to see that growth, though, for yourself, too,
no,
100%,
right? Like,
that's awesome. I mean, and especially if that's discouraging as a freshman, like you could have easily
quit. I gave a pep talk at the beginning of this year for those who joined right away. Like, I told people that. I like to tell people that, because it's like, I sucked, and I'm not afraid to admit it. But I really, really stuck to it, and I just tried different things, and yeah, it's really made the difference. But back to your question from before, my freshman year, I stuck with the same thing, more because I was too afraid to take on too much. I did one thing, and I slightly got better at it, but I still sucked. My sophomore year, I really tried to branch out. I didn't do any informative pieces my sophomore year. I was like, this is not for me. And I went to acting. I was in 4-H when I was little, and I did a little bit of competitive acting when I was in 4-H. And so I was like, I have acting experience. I not really. But I went and I tried, and I went through quite a few pieces that year. And same with last year, as I was saying before. But this year I've really stuck with the same few, because I have a very big connection. Typically you'll see people with 3 different pieces, but with oil, me and Anna, we have 2 different pieces that we perform for oil. So I have 4 pieces that I'm very familiar with, and I've stuck with throughout the whole year.
Javis, you said something before that you kind of glossed over, but it has stuck with me and I wanted to follow up on it with all of you, is the fact that a lot of your practice time is spent listening to your peers and giving and receiving feedback. And I think that's a skill, especially if you're not confident in yourself, right? Hearing that feedback from some of your peers, but then also giving it in a positive way. So talk about that a little bit. What have you learned about that? How do you give and receive feedback?
For sure. At the beginning of the year, I had always held opinions when I had seen people do their pieces, but I was way too afraid to say anything. So I kind of just sat in the room and I wasn't very helpful. I was just getting feedback. I wasn't giving. So I was kind of just a part of the team, like not in the team though. Over the year though, I've gotten more confident in giving people feedback on like how they speak, the confidence that they use, the volume that they give, the tone that they're handing out. It took a lot of time for me to get that confident to say these things to my peers, because sometimes it can feel really, really mean what you're saying, really mean, but you're really just trying to make people look better.
Yeah, branching off of that, I've definitely, like, at the start of the year, I was so scared to give feedback because I was like, oh, I don't want to sound mean. But after watching a lot of, like, the seniors or, like, the team captains perform and give feedback, like Lilly, I learned a lot of stuff that I could give feedback for and be helpful other than just saying, oh, I like your piece. But it's definitely my feedback and, like, constructive criticism has definitely grown, and I feel more confident in critiquing and giving advice to people, because it's not just like positive things. Like, you get to tell your peers how you think they can grow with their piece, and it definitely is a skill that I've had to learn.
Yeah. Is it something that you explicitly talk about as a team? Because I could see that if you don't have a good culture for feedback on the team, you could have a lot of resentment and anger if somebody says something that you don't like. So it seems like actually a pretty critical part of having a cohesive team.
We really made it a goal this year to change our team culture in that regard. In past years, it has been a very sensitive subject about giving and receiving feedback. Typically, in past years, it was you have to have a team captain in your room, and they're the only ones that are giving you like good feedback. And that's just not how we wanted that team to be. We wanted to like everyone to realize that their opinions are valuable, and we always phrase it as it's not telling you what to change, it's giving you suggestions on how to change. Just because someone says something and they didn't like it doesn't mean you have to change it. And that was a really hard thing for me personally to realize, is that you don't have to change every little thing. This goes the same way with judges. Judges, they're all adults, and so a lot of times we hold their opinions far higher than that of our peers. So when they tell us, hey, this kind of sucked, that you really, really take that to heart. And one of the most valuable skills I've learned from forensics is learning how to take feedback and not like take it to heart in that severe sense that I used to. It was a huge
skill.
Yeah, it was a huge improvement. And I was at the girls leadership event, I think almost 2 years ago, or 2 years, 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago now. And they really talked about that. It was all women in leadership positions, and it was all them talking about, it was like a panel. We got to ask questions. One of the big questions was, how do you handle the feedback? Like, is that hard for you to handle? And I mean, it just made me think about forensics, because it's like, that is one of the best things that I have taken away from forensics, is how to give and handle feedback appropriately and respectfully.
That is not something I thought about with forensics until now. And I do think that's so critical. If you can take feedback with a growth mindset and not take it personally, like, you unlock so many opportunities for personal growth that extend beyond forensics. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And as Hope was saying before, like, a lot of freshmen are very intimidated to give feedback because they're like, I'm a freshman, I don't know what I'm doing, why would I give you feedback? And I just don't think that's true. I think, I mean, either of you could go in and give feedback. Like, it's genuinely, general public can go in and be like, hey, maybe do something like that. Like, you're human. You know how to connect with other humans with interaction. And forensics is learning how to nail that, like, with preparation. And so I really think anybody can give valuable feedback as long as you know how to give it respectfully, and as long as the person receiving it knows, again, not to take it to heart.
I
have something to add over that. First of all, talking about like me personally trying to like give critiques or feedback to people. Even though I'm a sophomore on the team, I still like have those moments where I feel uncomfortable with stuff because I know other people interpret things differently, and it's not like I want to shun their opinion or how they have interpreted a piece of literature, because I know that other people may interpret it the same way as them, but I also know other people might see it the same way as I do. And something I don't think we talked about when discussing how competitions work, I know Lily talked about the numbers and like rankings among people in the room. However, I don't think we talked about this thing called ballots, which the judges, every single judge you have, and if you make it to the final round where there are 3 judges in one room, every single judge gets to submit their feedback every time they see you do your piece. So let's say I triple powered and was triple entered in a thing, which means I would have 3 pieces of feedback for every category for preliminary rounds. So that's already 9 pieces of feedback. And then I would have 3 judges in every single power round. So I would have 18 different separate judges' notes to read through off of one tournament. And she said, Lily, don't take everything to heart because judges will always have different opinions. Like how I said, you will interpret a piece of literature maybe different from who is performing it. It's the same for all of the judges. I once had a judge tell me that my eyes were too squinty. Like, you'll get all sorts of notes. There are some judges who don't give you feedback. Like other people were talking about, Javis said he used to just sit in a room. Hope said that she just went, good piece. I've had judges, I'm not going to name judges even though I want to. There's this one judge who consistently, every time I have them as a judge, they rank me a 5. So 5th in the room out of 5 competitors. And some people put RFR, reason for rank, in their notes. However, this judge just says, great performance, loved what you did, but then they give you a 5. So, well, yes, we must learn to take like feedback. It's also not great when we aren't given any at all.
Can you talk more about like what the judges score you on? Do they have a rubric? Do they have like, can you talk a little bit more about that?
Lily was talking about the WFCA, which is the Wisconsin Forensics Association, or Forensics Coaches Association. There is an entire website that has rules for, I think it's the 18 main categories.
Yep.
So there are 18 main categories that will be at almost every WFCA tournament. And then there are some extras. However, in the website, in each category listing, there's a PDF of rules. There's about 1 to 2 pages, if you look at their website, per each category. It says what you may dock points on, what you may not dock points on. Lily and I had been mentioning different times for different categories. And with most of these categories, there's a 15-second grace period. So let's say I'm doing oral interpretation of literature, and it's a 10-minute category, but I get 10 minutes and 20 seconds. Well, that's over the 10-minute, 15-second grace period. So they would not be able to rank me first. And again, you said, what kind of are the points? So besides that rubric, the numbers that you get, Lily did explain 1 was the best, and sometimes it can be like 6 is the worst. You're ranked out of all of the other people in your room. When you get a 1, that means you were the best in your room. If you get a 2, second best, and so forth. It's very direct.
Is that public? Because I'm just thinking about nerves and sitting in a room with all your competitors and watching everyone else compete, and then you get ranked like compared to everyone else in that room. Talk about that.
Ballots, which are the notes, they also show your rank. They don't come out until after you leave the tournament. And also, coaches on each team can see what other kids from other schools scored. So there's a record of like who's considered the good students and who's good at forensics. Although it's not a great term for it because, again, some judges, like, points really vary based off of who is judging you. And it's not as nerve-wracking as I think it could be if they said it out loud in the room. The only thing they really say out loud in the room, because they're not allowed to critique you then and there, is if I ask for how much they timed me at, I'll go, may I know my time? And they'll tell you 7:45. and that's all the other competitors know. That's all you'll know about their things. And separate note, there are some categories where other competitors are not allowed in the room while you are competing, such as duo improv. I can't think of any others right now. But in duo improv, the other competitors cannot be in the room because then they would know what some of the topics are that you may be given. So even when you're asking for your time, they don't know that. And it's all confidential, and your coaches won't tell you other people's scores. But if the other people feel like sharing, they will. So it's still very personal, even though you get to see everything those judges thought about you.
I did want to add on to this a little bit. So the scores and the feedback themselves are not public except to coaches. However, the tournaments are public. So you don't have to be on a team to go to a tournament. Anybody can go to a tournament. You can have random people watch you. I remember last year I was at a tournament and I was shocked because I walked in and my elementary school librarian was sitting in the room. I had not seen her since elementary school, and she was just sitting there. She just came for fun. She knew nobody in forensics, and she was just like, oh, it's nice to see you. But like random people, we have parents come all the time. I wish we had more community members come and see forensics. It's totally allowed. However, a lot of people don't, mostly because a lot of people don't know what it is and don't know what exactly is happening. But I highly encourage it, and I think it's a great opportunity.
So this has been an awesome conversation. I have really enjoyed learning, especially about the skills that you're getting just by participating in forensics. And of course, as a school principal, like hearing about your growth in some really important areas that forensics has helped you with makes me pretty excited. So anybody who's listening, current high school student, current middle school student, parent who really wants to help get their child involved in something, how can they get involved in forensics?
Honestly, if somebody wants to get involved into forensics, they could come to a meeting, sit in like a room, or they could even come to a tournament. Like I know I've had a lot of friends who aren't quite on the team, but they still come to the meets and kind of watch what's going on. And then like I have this one friend and he had no plans in joining forensics. And then there he was, and he has a piece now, and I've seen him power consistently with it. So honestly, I think it's just kind of checking out what forensics is. And then a lot of us can be inspired to get a piece and join it.
You clearly have such a great culture that hopefully folks listening know that they would feel welcomed into your team and your culture.
Yeah, it really is such like a great community because like I said, I've met a lot of friends, a lot of role models, and I've gained a lot of public speaking skills, and it's just a great club all around.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for your time. Thank you for wanting to sit down with me and talk about this.
I just have to quick, before we wrap up, compliment you guys. Like, of all the podcasts we do, the amount of eye contact you guys make and just your ability to speak articulately is like so clear that forensics is helping you not only with public speaking, but also just speaking on mic or speaking to adults. So congrats, you guys. This is very impressive.
I want to be as good at public speaking as you are when I grow up. All right. Well, that's it for this episode of Ghost Stories. You can find our podcast. We make a new episode once a month during the school year. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And until next time, as always, it's a great day to be a ghost.